One of the less, unless you don't like the favorite in the first race, one of the less interesting handicapping puzzles of the day, a four-horse field now. And Royal Flag, who in my opinion, she may have needed her first start. She may have needed more distance. She also did not exactly getting a winning trip. And it's not really I'm blaming the rider, because at this point, Irene Ortiz tried to get her the outside. And when she did, when you get met like that and the door kind of closes, she loses all momentum.
Yeah. This seemed like a race that might have had some quality to it at the time. There were some first-time starters in there that looked like they might go on to do some better things. Hasn't exactly panned out that way, but ultimately it doesn't really matter that much because she's run faster than these horses with experience, and she's likely to improve.
Yeah, she just seems a very likely winner because the other options are a first-time starter on the rail, first foal for Mike Trombetta, and the horse We Are Family, and the outsiders had a million chances.
I mean, I can't make a case for We Are Family beating the other horse with experience, Royal Flag. And I mean, Candy Money, I mean, she's got a little bit of round pedigree. You've got to go pretty deep, but I mean, better, she's like the family of Better Than Honor, like Jazzle and Rags to Riches, but it's deeper down. So we'll see.
We'll see. Royal Flag, a very likely winner to start off the day, and a single for a lot of people starting out the early pick 5. Race number 2 is a little more confusing, race number 2, and I know that we have similar picks, but I think some decisions here, and I want to talk about the two horses coming out of the 4th race on November 15th, Floss Dancer and Why Is She So Lucky? Because I actually think you're kind of supposed to take a shot with Why Is She So Lucky in this race, who I would say wasn't given her best chance. I don't know why she was as far back as she was in the running. I mean, it basically just sort of dragged her back to last, and I don't really know why.
Yeah.
And that was not a time to do it.
No, and she's kind of this horse without a lot of turn of foot. She just kind of grinds along, and maybe she'll be closer to the pace going the mile this time. She's getting a rider upgrade, Jabrelo Gutierrez, who's the best rider that's been on her in a while. So I have no problem with her. I put her second, and she's going to be a much bigger price than the horse that I put on top.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I felt. I just thought, Floss Dancer's fine. I'm not knocking her. She obviously can win this race. And in a lot of ways, I think she's the horse to beat in here. But she's just sort of okay. And she didn't really run as much through the kickback. A little bit, though, last time. And that's something I know you want to talk about.
Yeah, the thing with her, though, is that a lot of these other horses that are in this race, they've got maybe 1 speed figure, 2 speed figures that make them competitive here. You look through her PPs, she's got like 5 or 6 speed figures that just make her the horse to beat in this race. So I wasn't going to go against her as the favorite. Last time out regarding her trip, she was kind of altering course a few times in behind horses. She did take kickback, but she wasn't way off the pace. She was sort of just a length or 2 behind horses. I don't think the kickback is usually that bad when horses are racing close up to the leaders. So she had to alter course a few times. Maybe she should have won, but it's close.
Yeah, it's close. And I know she finished a couple lengths ahead of Why Is She So Lucky. I just think may get a slightly better ride. It'll be a much better price today. Theodosia's a funny horse because I didn't like her last time, and arguably this race is maybe a little bit weaker than last time, but it was a pretty weak field last time. I'm not sure that sending her up the rail the way Dylan Davis did was in her best interest. The rail was not the best place to be that day, right down on the inside. I'm still a little skeptical of her overall dirt forms. I think it makes her look a little better than she is.
Yeah, she's got some results on dirt. If you look at her, you know, the PP box up in the upper right-hand corner of your PPs, but those were, I think, at Tampa against cheaper horses years ago. So her recent figures are okay. They put her in the mix, but she's no great shakes.
Right, I just preferred her. You know, I don't really like Mom Meatloaf, who I thought beat an extremely weak field last time. Frankly, if I used any goofy horse, I'd throw in Grand Banks, because at times Grand Banks has run well enough on the dirt to be competitive, and I think that Grand Banks is a horse that improved for the Jimmy Bond barn. So I think it's not unreasonable to suggest she could show a little improvement on the dirt.
And it looks like she lost that $5,000 claimer last time badly, but she should have won that day. She got a trip, so just note that if you like her.
Yeah, but she did run for 5,000, which is also worth noting. Race number 3. I don't know if we're going to be right in race number 3, but one of my most difficult jobs I found handicapping this card was trying to find my 2nd, 3rd, and 4th horses in this race, because I knew I wanted to bet Money Ride in race number 3. And we'll take a look at Money Ride's last race. We'll look at the beginning. The horse was completely and totally steadied out of the race, and I actually think did some real running in here. I mean, just taken back out of the race and lost all chance at this point. And I actually thought Money Ride did a little bit of running in a race that I don't know if it was a particularly good race, but it was probably better than this one.
Yeah, this horse was originally entered in a tougher spot a couple days ago, and I think they made the right move to scratch out of that race and run here instead because he just looks pretty formidable against this field if he runs back to this race at all and gets even a fair trip because he's down inside. Throughout the month of November, especially towards the middle of the month, we did not see horses rallying through kickback inside, and he's trying to make up ground here, not really in an ideal position, but he's still coming on, never quits. I thought this was an encouraging effort.
I agree. He ends up ducking back inside at this point in the race, and this was a day when I really didn't think you wanted to be right down on the inside. Yeah. And this was actually and I think that's one of the reasons that he sort of stalled his rally right at the end because he went down to the rail. And the other thing is, where else are you supposed to go in this race? I'm not saying he's going to win because maybe he doesn't show up or isn't that good, but after him, I just feel like Greedo to Pablito was my best guess for second because he hadn't proven yet to me that I don't want him.
Yeah, I watched that race back. It's not as bad as that 25-length margin of defeat would see him because he was in contention until the quarter pole and then he just sort of got eased home. I mean, the Midnight Lutes, they often don't like very wet tracks because they're typically bigger horses, so we'll see if he likes getting on a fast track here. Now and again, the Gary Contessa's other horse, who's a second-time starter, was just really wide in his debut, just sort of losing a ton of ground around the far turn. So we'll see if a fairer trip helps him. He's getting some class relief, too.
Yeah, I tried to make a case for Now and Again, but the more I watched, the less I was excited by that horse. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. It's not as though Junior really gave up on that horse.
No, because the other horse that's going to take money is Macho Boy, and it just seems like he's tailing off.
Yeah, I didn't particularly like Macho Boy either. We'll see what happens in race number 3. The fourth race, I guess we'll start out with a discussion involving Spectator Sport and Soul Flight, because I actually thought Soul Flight ran reasonably well in this race. Soul Flight's the number 9, and Soul Flight sort of dropped out at the start. Then Joel put the horse back in the race, and I thought that Soul Flight ended up moving too soon in this race, and Spectator Sport may have benefited more from the way the race ended up being run as opposed to Soul Flight, who I thought moved too soon.
Yeah, it's hard to know. The race did kind of fall apart at the very end, so I think that's probably true about Soul Flight moving a little bit too soon. He also didn't break well, so he had to rush up on the backstretch. And
we didn't have to. He did.
Yeah, he did.
He chose to.
Yes, that's true. That's what happened. And Spectator Sport, he's making the last move here, and he's almost getting there. We'll see. I'm not sure about Soul Flight's prior form. I know he ran okay this day. He's just not a horse that I've ever really been a big fan of. Spectator Sport has run well multiple times in the past, so this last effort wasn't a huge surprise, even though he was a big price that day. And the claim by Linda Rice is just significant because the stat jumps off the page.
Right. I think he's very logical. I took Soul Fight because he's lightly raced. I think his last race is better than it looks, and I thought he'd be the best price of the horses I could use it here. I don't disagree that Spectator Sport is probably a more likely winner of the race. You have Yankee Division on top. We'll take a look at Yankee Division winning last time out, a horse that was claimed out of this race by Rudy Rodriguez.
Yeah, I would have picked Spectator Sport, but he's part of an entry, and we talk about this all the time. Entries are hard to take when you don't like the other half. As for Yankee Division, just feels like this is the kind of horse that Rudy Rodriguez could really improve getting into his barn. Nothing against the prior connections, because I think they do well with the limited stock that they have, but this is a gigantic trainer switch to Rudy Rodriguez, and there's something there with this horse. I know Maggie talked about it in the paddock last time, that this is a really good-looking horse. He's this bigger son of Midnight Lute who there's a frame there for him to be a good horse. And it just seems like there might be something that Rudy can work with here. I sent in a stat for Rudy Rodriguez. He's great first off the claim in dirt routes in general, but off maiden wins, he's 4 for 10. Actually, 4 additional horses finished second, so he's 8 for 10 in the exacta. Just great numbers for Rudy in this situation.
Well, I'll tell you something funny. What he's extremely good with is claiming maidens. Rudy didn't expect this horse to win.
No.
Rudy has those incredible numbers, like off the charts, crazy numbers
out of maiden
with
races.
Maidens off the claim. And I don't think that if Rudy thought he was going to win, he probably would be better off betting a lot of money to win on him instead of claiming the horse for $25,000 at 680 to 1. So I think this one almost falls in the category of the kind of horse that Rudy wins maiden races with. Now, obviously, it's tougher than the average maiden race, but it is interesting. And this is one. It's one thing when you claim a horse that's 2 to 5 or 3 to 5 in the maiden race, and you kind of know you're about to lose a condition. I think Rudy was annoyed and surprised that he lost the condition here. I agree. I'm going to use that horse as well. And there are turf horses in here that I think you want to talk about for a second, including Overbold and Digital Footprint. Digital Footprint, actually has a little bit of dirt pedigree, and Overbold probably has more dirt pedigree. It's probably more dirt than anything else. It's just these horses never win.
Yeah. Overbold, I haven't liked his recent form anyway. I thought his
can't win on
figure
the lead.
2-back was just a little phony. Digital Footprint does have dirt pedigree. The Dams actually have to Unrivaled Bell, who was the Breeders' Cup Ladies Classic winner on the dirt. But the fact that they only ran him on the turf, not a good sign.
Yeah, it was Chad Brown, but I agree. These horses always take money. Put it this way. If you throw out every horse that looks like Digital Footprint that takes money, you save yourself a lot of money. You more than eliminate the takeout throughout the winter here. Occasionally one will win, but they rarely do. Race number 5. I thought about trying to pick against Felix and Fibula, and we'll take a look at him winning last time out. And I don't totally trust him, and I know he's coming back on very short rest. I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, for me, David, I didn't want to take anybody else, and I don't trust the horse you're picking.
Yeah, Felix and Fibula, he's nothing special, but what he is he's consistent. And you look back through his PPs, his last 10 races ever in Buyers between 82 and 92. I mean, that's just remarkable. The time from US speed figures, there's even a smaller spread. He just runs the same race every time. He's often not good enough to beat M1X Allowance Company, but he found himself in a pretty weak off the turf race last time and got the job done. This race, probably not that tough either, so he's supposed to handle this field if nobody else steps up, but there are some candidates to step up.
Let me ask you another question. Do we think he's a little better at a one-turn mile and a mile and eighth? I know he won at Saratoga. I still wonder if he is.
I've always thought the mile and eighth was a bit of a stretch for him, but I guess you could say 2 of his last 3 races might say that's not true.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Sometimes you want to argue a fact. You've got Harper's first ride on top. Here's his win last time out, and he does seem to be an improving horse, that's for sure.
Yeah, this is a horse that I just think, I mean, he's only a 3-year-old, and he's definitely getting better now at the end of his sophomore season. I like this race because it's only going the 1-turn mile at Laurel, and it almost never looks like he's getting there, but he just keeps coming, keeps grinding, just keeps finding another gear, even though the horse outside of him had built up more momentum, and he's going to run away from this field in the last 16th of a mile. You saw the same thing out of him in that mile and a 16th race, 2-back Laurel, where he beat this horse, Torch of Truth, who's actually pretty good. He's run multiple Buyers in the mid-80s, so that totally makes sense, that figure that he got 2-back. He just seems to me like one of these horses that's a grinder, that wants to run all day. He's got the tactical speed to be in position, and I think the mile and an eighth is really going to suit him.
I'm not going to argue against he could win. If you don't trust the one, he's a logical horse. What do you do with Supreme Aura, who was atrocious last time out? And I know it was a good rail, and he was in the 2 paths. He was a little against the track, but he was awful. There was a time he was good. Can Rudy can he get him back to his good races? If he does, he can win here.
Yeah, the margin of defeat last time is exaggerated because Laytone just ran off the screen, and that was an unusually fast speed figure for that level. My problem with him is I've never loved him going the mile and an eighth. I think he's more of a 1-turn mile kind of horse.
Fair.
That said, Rudy Rodriguez does have amazing numbers first off the claim with dirt routers, especially at Aqueduct, so I'm not going to let him beat me. He's just not a horse that I love.
He's 30 for 71 at Aqueduct with a 267 ROI, 42%. He's 38%, 43 for 113 overall with a 258 ROI. Those numbers are off the charts great.
The form doesn't really matter when you've got numbers like that because he typically improves these horses.
You have to use the horse in some respect. Race number 6, kicking off the late pick 4. We'll take a look at Figure It Out. This is last time running second to Honor and Way. I mean, I know you feel the same way. I hate to land on horses, and I know you've got the horse 5-2 morning line. I feel like the horse could be any price in this field. I mean, I just think she's been running against so much better horses and not running badly.
Yeah, it's hard to know what to do with her because she's one of these horses that's always a big price, and she just typically outruns her odds. And now she's actually getting into a race where she looks like the favorite, so it's going to be interesting to see how the public approaches her. I mean, just based on her races, she's been running fast enough and doing so against tougher fields than this. I like the 1-turn mile for her. I just think this is the ideal spot. I tried to get creative, but I couldn't pick against her.
I can't either. And the other thing is, you know, Jen Emily, you've got second choice and a narrow second choice. Yeah, she's run some good figures, but do we really trust her going a mile? Having said that, I think it's important to note that yesterday's racetrack was extremely kind to speed horses, and here she is. I think this is Jen Emily running second with Express Capacity running 4th behind Miss Imperial. I mean, I just don't know if she can get a mile, but yesterday's racetrack was very kind to forwardly placed horses, but the track's dried a lot in very different conditions today.
Yeah, you could say that she too has been facing better horses, and she's been earning speed figures that are maybe even a little bit better than Figure It Out. I agree, though, the mile is going to be a real test for her. I know she sort of did it on the turf, but that's a totally different situation.
And 7 furlongs, she did Saratoga.
I sent in the pace projector for this race. She is slightly the speed, but there are other horses that are going to want to be forwardly placed here, stretching out in distance, and I don't think there's not going to be a pace up front. I think it'll be honest.
I think it'll be honest. I don't agree it's going to be a fast pace.
Yeah, I'm not sure he necessarily
I'm a little
favors
bit
closers,
dubious of that. The other thing is, how far out of it's figured out going to be?
She's got tactical speed.
Right. It's not like she figures to be sitting 5 lengths behind and be at some significant disadvantage. So I just have trouble getting her to beat her. I put Stay Smart second, who I thought might hopefully have some upside in this race. And maybe she'd sit sort of a good trip. If the others can't get the distance, she could.
Yeah, she's got back figures. She's got that stalking running style where she might work out a trip. My long shot to throw in was Dirty Bird on the rail. She did really improve when they stretched her out as a 2-year-old, and now she's just returned in better form as a 3-year-old. So if she improves stretching out again, she's got a shot here, but she needs to move forward.
I agree she's improved. She also may have stepped up in the wet track last time, but she gets a wet track again today, even if a different kind of wet track. Race number 7. You know, I don't know what you're supposed to do.
I know.
I mean, it's another race where we'll take a look at Hayfield's last race. She's better than these horses.
That's how I feel. She's like Felix and Fibula. She just always shows up with a good effort, and today she's not really facing horses that can beat her. I mean,
she's dropping down. This is a much easier spot than she was in last time.
It is.
Cash Offer's a better horse than the one she's running against today.
Totally. I mean, her last 3 races, she's been facing horses that are better than these. She's just supposed to win, and she's consistent. She always shows up. She's got a running style where she's not going to be compromised, even breaking from the rail. I mean, she's been in good barns, but Rudy Rodriguez, we talked about his numbers first off the claim in dirt routes. They're almost as good in dirt sprints at Aqueduct, so I don't really have a knock against her.
I don't have one either, and I looked. And the other thing is, I just don't really like anybody else in here. I mean, I've tried Puffery. Puffery, I thought it was a good bet I made last time at 14-1. She got a perfect trip. She couldn't even pick up second. No, I mean, she did what she did. She just runs the same sort of mid to high 60 buyers, which aren't good enough to beat in any respect Hayfield unless she doesn't show up. Timely Tradition is kind of okay, and I guess she's all right. She's coming off a little bit of a layoff. She's the second fastest horse.
She took advantage of some circumstances over the summer and into the fall because she's just not quite as fast as Hayfield, even though she's achieved some similar results on occasion. And last time, I mean, I know she kind of disappointed, but it was her best buyer ever, so, I mean, maybe not. To me, she was just the second most likely winner.
Yeah, I agree. And I think she's reasonably behind Hayfield because Flatcom is consistently too slow. I mean, you know I want to make a case for my horse Mary's Girl on the outside, and she has really improved for Rick. And she's in good form and she's improving, but still, she's got to move up another 3 lengths or so to be remotely competitive here. And why would she do that?
I agree. I mean, if Hayfield doesn't show up, I mean, I think you can consider horses like her. You can consider Archu My Baby because if others don't show up, at least she loves to win races and she's a really gritty mare that tries.
Amazing, Archu My Baby's career record.
I know she wins all these races by like a head or a neck, and she just gets it done.
11 for 33.
But this is a tough spot.
11 for 33 and only 12 seconds in third. So not only does she show up almost 70% of the time to hit the board, but she wins half of those races. It is remarkable. And I mean, these are sort of the great pros in the game. Race number 8, the $500,000 New York Stallion Series. Am I correct? These are the biggest purses for 2-year-olds running New York all year?
I want to say the Champagne was 500,000.
Is it 5 or 400?
I thought it was 5.
Okay, so they're equal. An upset yesterday by Jason Service. I think I thought Dream Bigger took a slight step back, maybe 7 furlongs of stretching it a bit for him.
I think it is a little bit.
Yeah,
but he ran well.
He ran fine. Yeah, he didn't lose anything in defeat. He probably just stretching him to the limits of his distance. At the end of the day, if Big Q runs this race that he did last time, he's going to win. It's not even discussable. The problem, or she is. The problem that I have is, I bet her last time. I really liked her last time, and I got the money. And I can't bet a horse that I got $20 on coming back at 3 or 4 to 5. Is she the horse to beat? Of course. But I want to try to get a little creative and pick somebody against her, but I'm not going to take a big stand against her. I don't think you are either.
No, but you do have to say, where did this race come from? Because I know she had a couple trips in the past, but this is such a huge improvement.
I agree, it is. But her races aren't as bad as they look. The Adirondack, she had a real trip. She made a move in there. She was jammed out on the rail. Those are better horses. So you could argue with a fair trip, she runs the mid to high 60s. And then I'm talking to Gary Gullo about it actually after the horse won. And he said, you know, I just felt like I ran her too many races too quickly. And he was right. and she just didn't show up in that next race at all. So yes, she improved a lot, but if you think she ran in the high 60s and you say it's a reasonable improvement for a 2-year-old, why couldn't she run in the mid 70s? Okay, she took a big step forward from there, but they are 2-year-olds, and you see it happen. But I think it is a reasonable question. Can we really rely on her to run on her figure in the 80s? But she doesn't need to.
No, she can regress by 10 points and still win this race, or perhaps even more than that,
Right.
because the rest of this field, I mean, I guess the second most likely winner is Time Limit, but I don't trust her going 7 furlongs.
too,
I mean,
right.
I said in the pace projector for this race because she does have a big pace advantage, but I mean, it's still going to be tough for her to get the distance.
And I'm going to also say about her pace advantage, I don't think it's the biggest, because you're making that figure is based on Big Q's previous races. And
Yeah.
one of the biggest differences, not only for Big Q that she was improved last time, is she had a lot more speed.
She did.
So Jose's not going to grab her out of the gate. He's going to let her go forward. I think Time Limit's going. But I don't think you're going to be sitting as far back as pace projector suggests.
The other point to make about Big Q's last race that we kind of glossed over is that was in the middle of that time when the kickback was really detrimental to horses, and she was drawn outside and got that perfect outside stalking trip. Now she's inside. They've got a decision to make. Do they rate her? Do they try to stay and hold that position inside of Time Limit? It's going to be interesting to see what they do.
But I don't think that time with the kickback, I think the illusion was that it was helping speed horses.
No.
It was hurting closers.
Yeah.
So I don't think the 87 buyer is a function of the racetrack.
No, and it's why I'm a little skeptical of that figure, because do I really believe that Playtone, who didn't get the greatest trip running through the kickback, ran the same buyer that she did in her debut win? Maybe she did. We'll see.
It was a fast race.
It was.
But relatively speaking, but it's a little tricky, that racetrack. So there are times when the figures are accurate. And listen, Craig agreed with the figure. He had it a little bit slower, but not a lot slower. You know, a fifth of a second or so. I think it's fair to say you can take some figures with a grain of salt because the racetrack was so quirky.
Yeah, the figures are just difficult to make here in the winter, and we've seen that going back the past 2 years since they switched out the main track.
So, Afroida Mama, she is an interesting horse, your top pick, because she really has more of a dirt pedigree than turf pedigree.
Yeah, it's probably not a good sign that they've only run on the turf, but you say this quite a bit, that sometimes people get overzealous with these turf opportunities. A horse has a little bit of turf pedigree, she's a Freud, and they just only single-mindedly focus on turf when there are actually dirt opportunities that might be easier. And with her, we'll see if she handles the dirt, but as you said, the pedigree's there. Forgetting that she's a Freud, the dam was strictly a dirt horse. She's produced foals that are just dirt horses and they're dirt routers, so the extra distance shouldn't be a problem. And they've been by turf sire. She's a half to In Spite of Mama, who's by Speightstown, who's a 3-time dirt winner. And the dam herself is a half sister to Haynesfield.
She's a nice horse.
Who was a dirt horse, and he's a dirt influence as a sire.
Dominic Lucio trained her?
Who, In Spite of
Mama? No, Mama Teresa, the dam.
Oh, that might be right.
I think Dominic may have trained her, or at least one time he did. Yeah, and it's interesting because it's just the game has changed. That, to me, is one of the bigger changes and a change in handicapping. It was 25 years ago. If trainers ran horses on the turf in their first couple of starts, it was almost a guarantee that the horse couldn't stand. He might hit the dirt and just fall over. They never won, ever.
Yep.
And now that's changed significantly because of the abundance of turf opportunities in a very different way. So I don't want to condemn that horse either because Mike has been running that horse in the turf. She's dangerous. Okay, here's my argument with my horse here, Officer Hutchy. I want to show Officer Hutchy's race. First of all, Officer Hutchy, by the way, did break slowly after breaking about a half a leg slowly. This was a visually impressive win. I know it's a goofy race because the third finisher is coming back on Thursday. I don't know if you looked at that race yet on Thursday, but you see Jose's trying to get this horse to the outside. The door shuts. Immediately goes back inside. The inside wasn't even the place to be. He goes back to the inside, and she re-rallies again down towards the inside. This is a horse, I know she got a 55 buyer, but I'm going to tell you right now, she ran an effort that was closer to a 65 buyer. Also, Linda Rice, second-time stars. Now, here's one, okay? The maiden winner's last out, dirt sprints. She's great off of wins, but here's the other thing. What she's really great with are second-time starters in maiden races that blow their first race because they're not ready to run first time. And how many Linda Rice horses have we seen run 46 buyers first time out, come back and run a 72 and win races? And we bet on about half of them.
Yeah.
So I'm looking, and I don't love this horse by any stretch of the imagination because I am trying to make a slow horse fast. But my feeling is this horse that's clearly better than the 55 buyer. Maybe it was a Linda Rice horse that wasn't supposed to even win first time out and won despite that and could easily take a significant step forward second time out and is going to be a price. I don't think this horse is rates to beat Big Q, but I thought was the one horse I could make a reasonable case could have a gigantic improvement in her.
Well, the thing about her is she wasn't a horse that was meant to win first time out because she was a big price that day. She had trouble, and typically when these things happen, Linda Rice horses don't win first time out. And imagine that she finished third by a length. We'd probably see Linda move her up to a maiden special weight, and maybe she'd win with a 70, 75 buyer.
Exactly.
That makes her
exactly. And
yes.
this horse had 3 excuses to run poorly. She didn't break. She got steadied, shut off when she was trying to move outside to run, and then she ducked back towards the bad inside, and she re-rallied. So she overcame multiple points of trouble to get it done, albeit in a slow race. And there is that, there's no trips in slow races argument, but there is a fair argument that she could improve for Linda, so I took a shot with her. And there's nobody else in the race that I could even consider.
There's just not.
Race number 9, I get that the winner of the 9th race may very well be the 6th, The Joke's on You. And we'll show The Joke's on You's first race back in July. But let me tell you something. This horse has never come back close to the effort. First time out.
Yeah, he ran okay this day. It was a much better field than this. Although he did
was okay.
Yeah, he did get a little lucky because he's keeping in the horse that probably should have won this race, and he probably should have been 4th actually.
Helped his uncoupled stablemate out. David's bitter. David bet the horse that was trapped. No, that was a heavy favorite.
No, I bet the 3.
That was that Clement horse.
I like the speed this day.
Oh, you like the 3?
Yeah, I did. But the thing about him is, has he ever really run that well? I know he's been in some tougher company, but he just kind of runs around there, doesn't really make a move, and he's just, it was weird they tried the turf with him because he doesn't have much turf pedigree. He just fell apart last time. I know it was in the slop, but dropping down, Charlton Baker doesn't have great numbers with this move, so I don't know. He's a little wishy-washy for me.
He's the horse to beat. The Champagne was $500,000. Anthony looked it up, actually. We were talking about it yesterday. So the question is, who do you want to take if you go opposite? We sort of flip-flopped our ideas. You went to more experience. I'm assuming Apex Predator is your pick, though I know you do have some mad love for an awesome adversary.
I've tried him in the past. He's not the worst backup for me to have.
You have definitely donated on his part.
I wouldn't be upset if he was the one that came through, but no. I think
it would be funny if you were alive for a big pick 5 and Apex Predator ran 8th and Awesome Adversary won. There would be a funny poetic justice for you.
Yeah, I don't like picking entries, but I do think at least both have a chance. I do prefer Apex Predator, though. You look through this race, I know a lot of them are cheap horses, but getting past that, there's not a lot of speed. And the thing about Apex Predator is he really needs the lead. And he didn't get it last time. He didn't break that well. Just got behind horses in the slop. Doesn't matter. He actually almost beat The Joke's on You that day anyway. And Apex Predator is a horse that got pretty good at Belmont out of nowhere. I mean, the dropping class helped. And he ran last 2 back when he beat Freudian Sip. I know that he should have come down that day, and I agree with the decision, but he still ran the race that he ran. And if he just gets in front of these and The Joke's on You doesn't show up for whatever reason, I think he's going to be tough.
How worried are you that there'll still be moisture in the track? And I think it may well be good. I don't know if it's harrowed at this point. I wish we would list if it's muddy sealed or muddy harrowed, because I think it matters.
I would imagine it's harrowed.
So it could well be good. I think there's a little bit of wind, though. There's reports of it being some crazy windy day, and
it was windy when I came in this morning.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I live off the water of the city, and I didn't hear any howling wind at all last night. Anyway.
I mean, I don't think about wet tracks that way. To me, a sloppy sealed track is as different from a muddy harrow track as a muddy harrow track is from a fast track. So I don't even care.
I would actually say it's more.
Yeah.
I'd say a muddy harrow track is closer to a faster track than
I agree with
sloppy sealed track. It's just worth pointing out. The horse has run abysmally, even if an excuse last time. And I don't disagree. I'm going to use Principal Dancer. First time out, got run off his feet by Cool Boy. At least he showed a little speed that day. It's not like he showed nothing here. How about this one, Jimmy Bond, which you found, made special made claiming on the dirt. Good numbers. Try the turf, didn't work out. To me, there's 3 horses you could take in here. I took the one who has the better price and has the least number of races.
I'll use him. I didn't see a whole lot in his debut, but it's a dropping class that you can't ignore.
Yeah, I'm just going to use them. I don't have a strong opinion. I'm going to use all 3 of them as well. David, thanks so much. We won't see you next week?
No, I think probably in the new year.
All right, we'll see you in the new year. All right. Anthony's giving the changes and calling the first race as well. So he's opening the card for the first time today. Anyhow, head over to Naira Bets. If you're not a member of Naira Bets, bet it will match up a $200 deposit. Use the promo code Big A, and also want to remind people, Turf Paradise, race number 3, take a look. Free $25 bet, app only through Naira Bets. If your horse wins, get your winnings. If it runs anywhere from second to nowhere, you get your money back. How can you pass on that? That's through Naira Bets, through the app only. Anyhow, thanks again, David. Anthony Stabile with a reprise, The Scratches and Changes.